"He's the one who took my sister," said the orphaned boy to the lawyer. Then the judge shocks the courtroom. The day had started like any other at the family court in Boston, with lawyers organizing papers and families waiting nervously in the hallways. Nobody expected a 15-year-old boy, wearing the orange uniform from the children's home, to completely change the course of that session. It was when Tyler Smith abruptly rose from the chair reserved for minors and pointed his finger directly at Dr. Richard Miller, one of the city's most respected lawyers. "He's the one who took my sister," shouted the boy, his voice echoing off the courtroom walls. Silence fell immediately. Dr. Richard, who was organizing documents for the next case, looked up in surprise. His hands, until then steady, began to tremble slightly as he held the papers. "Young man, what are you doing?" asked the social worker accompanying him, trying to get him to sit down, but Tyler didn't move. His dark eyes, full of a pain that seemed too ancient for someone so young, remained fixed on the lawyer. Judge Helen Robinson, the judge in charge of the children's court, banged her gavel, calling for order. At 62, she had witnessed many unusual situations, but this one intrigued her deeply. "Young man, explain yourself. What do you mean by that?" Tyler took a deep breath. His hands were sweating, but his determination was unshakable. "Your Honor, I've been sleeping at the door of this court for 3 nights in a row asking to speak with you. My sister disappeared 8 years ago, and this man knows where she is." Dr. Richard stood up, adjusting his tie nervously. "Your Honor, I have no idea who this boy is. I've never seen him in my life." "Liar!" Tyler took a step forward. "You came to St. Francis Children's Home in 2016. I was 7 years old. My sister Sophia was just 6 months old. You said you were going to find a good family for her, that you'd come back for me too." The court's social worker, Melissa O'Connor, watched everything with growing interest. She knew well the stories of children who spent years waiting for adoption, especially siblings who ended up being separated. "Go on, son," said the judge, sensing there was something important in that accusation. Tyler looked around the courtroom. Some people waiting for other cases stopped to listen. His voice, though still that of a teenager, carried a certainty that was impressive. "I remember the exact day. It was a Tuesday morning. Aunt Carol, the home's director, was crying when you left with Sophia in the car. She said it was for the best for my sister, that she was going to have a real family. But they promised I wouldn't be left alone." Dr. Richard shrugged, but his expression had changed. The man who always displayed total confidence seemed slightly shaken. "Your Honor, there may have been some adoption process I facilitated years ago, but I don't specifically remember this case. I work with many families." "Oh, but I remember you," Tyler continued, his voice gaining strength. "You had a black car, very nice, and you wore a gold watch just like the one you're wearing now. My sister cried a lot, but you said it was normal, that she would get used to her new family." Judge Helen leaned forward. There was something in the boy's story that touched her deeply, perhaps because she herself had faced family difficulties in childhood. "Dr. Richard, could you check your files from that period?" "Of course, Your Honor. But I must inform you that there was a fire in my old office in 2019. Many documents were lost. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out." Now, continuing, Melissa, the social worker, approached the boy. "Tyler, you said your sister's name is Sophia. What's her full last name?" "Sophia Smith. She was born on March 15, 2016 at North District General Hospital. I remember because our mother always said she was born on the same day spring arrived." Dr. Richard stopped shuffling the papers. Something about that specific detail seemed to trigger his memory. The judge noticed the change in the lawyer's expression. "Dr. Richard, do you remember something?" "Well, it's possible I facilitated an adoption with those characteristics, yes, but everything was done legally, following all necessary protocols." Tyler stepped forward, his hands clenching into fists. "But why didn't you come back for me? Why did you leave me alone?" It was at that moment that a voice was heard from the back of the courtroom. An elderly lady with grey hair, who had quietly entered to observe another case, stood up. "Excuse me," she said, walking toward the center of the courtroom. "Sorry for interrupting, but I couldn't help overhearing this boy's story." The judge examined her curiously. "And you are?" "My name is Ruth Miller. I'm here waiting for a probate case. But when I heard about a girl named Sophia Smith, born in March 2016, I need to ask the boy something." Mrs. Miller approached Tyler, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "Son, did your sister have any birthmarks?" Tyler nodded immediately. "Yes, a small mark on her neck, on the right side. It looked like a tiny butterfly. I always joked that she was born with a real butterfly." Upon hearing these words, Mrs. Miller staggered. Dr. Richard jumped from his chair to support her, but she pushed him away with a brusque gesture. "No, it can't be," she murmured, before fainting. The courtroom filled with murmurs. Melissa ran to help the lady, while the judge asked for the courthouse doctor to be called. A few minutes later, Mrs. Miller regained consciousness. Seated in a chair, she stared at Tyler as if she were seeing a ghost. "Are you all right, ma'am?" asked Judge Helen. "Doctor, I need to say something very important," Mrs. Miller said, her voice still trembling. 8 years ago, my son and daughter-in-law adopted a baby girl named Sophia, a beautiful little girl with a birthmark on her neck that looked like a butterfly. Tyler felt his legs go weak. Finally, after so many years, someone was talking about his sister. "Where is she?" he asked, barely able to control his emotion. "My son Christopher and my daughter-in-law Patricia moved to England in 2020 because of his job. Sophia is 8 years old now, and she's always talked about an older brother. She said she remembered someone who took care of her and sang songs to make her stop crying." Tears began to stream down Tyler's face. He remembered perfectly the little songs he made up to calm Sophia when she cried in the nursery at the children's home. "She remembers me?" "More than that, son, Sophia has always begged her parents to find her brother. They tried a few times to contact the children's home she came from, but they were told there was no information about other relatives." Dr. Richard, who had remained silent, now seemed extremely uncomfortable. He tried to discreetly head for the exit, but the judge intercepted him. "Dr. Richard, you are not leaving here until we fully clarify this situation." "Your Honor, I've already said everything was done according to the law." "The law, yes," interrupted Mrs. Miller, standing up and facing the lawyer. "But what about ethics? What about humanity?" "Ma'am, I don't understand what you mean." Mrs. Ruth took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for something very difficult. "Dr. Richard, when my son and daughter-in-law decided to adopt, they clearly expressed the desire to adopt siblings, if that possibility existed. They wanted to give a complete family to children who had already lost so much." The lawyer paled. That is not relevant now." "It is relevant," said the judge, her voice growing firmer. "Dr. Richard, if the adoptive parents wanted siblings, why was only one child placed?" The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Tyler looked from the lawyer to Mrs. Ruth, trying to fully understand what was happening. "Your Honor," Dr. Richard finally spoke, his voice weaker. "There may have been some miscommunication between the parties." "Miscommunication?" Mrs. Ruth was visibly upset. "My son called me at the time, Dr. Richard. He specifically asked about the possibility of adopting Sophia's brother as well, and you told him the boy had severe behavioral problems, that it would be very difficult for a family to care for 2 children if one of them was troubled." Tyler felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. "Behavioral problems? But I never had any problems. I just wanted to stay with my sister." Melissa, the social worker, stepped forward. "Judge Helen, may I request that we consult the St. Francis Children's Home archives from that period, if there are still any records about Tyler's behavior." "Do it immediately," ordered the judge. As Melissa made the necessary calls, a heavy atmosphere hung over the courtroom. Dr. Richard nervously shuffled his papers, avoiding everyone's gaze. Mrs. Ruth approached Tyler and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Son, do you want to see your sister?" Tyler nodded, barely able to speak from the emotion. "I have some photos of her here on my phone. Sophia always wanted me to bring photos to show people, hoping someone might know her brother." With trembling hands, Mrs. Ruth showed the phone to Tyler. On the screen, a girl with curly hair smiled at the camera. She had grown a lot. but Tyler immediately recognized the large, expressive eyes he remembered from the baby he used to rock. "It's her," whispered Tyler. "It's my Sophia." "She draws you, you know," said Mrs. Ruth, swiping to other photos. "Look here, drawings she made of an older brother. She always says that one day you will meet." Tears now streamed freely down Tyler's face. Seeing his sister's childhood drawings made him realize how much she had also suffered from the separation. Melissa returned with information from the home. "Judge Helen, I spoke with the current director of St. Francis Children's Home. She managed to locate some records from 2016. According to the files, Tyler Smith was described as an exemplary child, very responsible and caring with the younger ones. There is no record of any behavioral problems." The lawyer Richard seemed to shrink in his chair. The judge stood up, her expression a mix of indignation and sadness. "Dr. Richard, do you have an explanation for this discrepancy?" The man remained silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Finally, he raised his eyes and everyone could see they were moist. "Your Honor, I made a grave mistake." "What mistake?" Dr. Richard took a deep breath as if preparing to confess something he had kept hidden for years. "The family was willing to pay a very generous sum for the adoption. When they learned there was a brother, they were unsure if they could handle 2 children at once. I convinced them it would be better to start with just the girl." "And why did you do that?" asked the judge. "Because I would only receive a fee for the girl's adoption. If they adopted both siblings, it would be considered a single process, and my fees would be lower." The shock was universal. Mrs. Ruth brought her hand to her chest as if she were having trouble breathing. "You separated 2 children for money." I told myself I was making the process easier, that it would be better for everyone. But I know it was pure greed. Tyler, who had listened to everything in silence, approached the lawyer. His voice when he spoke was low, but carried a maturity that impressed everyone present. "Because of you, I spent 8 years thinking nobody wanted me. Because of you, my sister grew up believing she had lost me forever. How many other siblings have you separated?" Dr. Richard couldn't answer. Tears were now streaming down his face as well. Mrs. Ruth, recovering from the initial shock, turned to the judge. "Doctor, what can we do now? How can we reunite these children?" Judge Helen thought for a few moments. "The case is complex because Sophia now legally lives in England with her adoptive family. We can't simply undo a legal adoption that's 8 years old, but we can facilitate contact between the siblings and seek a solution that benefits both." "I can call my son right now," said Mrs. Ruth. "They'll be shocked to learn the truth, but I'm sure they'll want to do what's best for Sophia and Tyler." "Make that call," authorized the judge. As Mrs. Ruth dialed, Tyler turned again to Dr. Richard. "Do you have children?" The lawyer nodded. 2 children. "And if someone separated them for money, how would you feel?" Dr. Richard buried his face in his hands. The boy's simple question had hit exactly where it hurt most. Across the courtroom, Mrs. Ruth was speaking excitedly on the phone. Everyone could hear her conversation. "Christopher, you won't believe what's happening. Yes, we found Sophia's brother. No, son, he didn't have any problems. We were deceived. How is she? Can I talk to her?" Mrs. Ruth motioned for Tyler to come closer. "Your sister wants to talk to you." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. With trembling hands, Tyler took the phone. On the other end of the line, a child's voice but clear spoke in Portuguese mixed with a few English words. "Hi, are you my brother Tyler?" "Sophia?" Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. "Sophia, it's me, your brother." "I knew it!" the girl shouted on the other end of the line. "I always knew you existed, Mommy and Daddy. He's here, it's Tyler." Tyler could hear the commotion on the other end of the line. Adult voices, a woman crying, a man speaking quickly. "Tyler," said Sophia, "I drew lots of pictures of you, and I saved a song that's always in my head. Do you remember how you used to sing to me when I was a baby?" Tyler began to sing softly, a simple little song he had made up years ago. On the other end of the line, Sophia sang along, remembering the melody perfectly. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even Dr. Richard was crying, seeing the magnitude of the pain he had caused. "Sophia, I never stopped thinking about you. Every day I looked for your face in people on the street. Me too, Tyler. I always told Mommy and Daddy that one day you would find me." A man's voice took the phone. "Tyler? This is Christopher, Sophia's father. Son, we have no words to apologize. If we had known the truth—" "Mr. Christopher, it's not your fault. You took good care of my sister, and I thank you for that. Tyler, we want you to be reunited as soon as possible. I'll talk to my wife about the possibility of us returning to the United States or bringing you here." Judge Helen, who had followed the entire conversation, asked to speak with Christopher. "Mr. Christopher, this is Judge Helen Robinson, presiding over the case. We need to discuss the legal matters involved in this situation. Could you arrange a video conference so we can all talk together?" "Of course, Your Honor. Can we do it right now?" In just a few minutes, a video conference was set up. On the court's computer screen appeared Christopher, a man around 40 years old, his wife Patricia, a blonde woman with a gentle expression, and Sophia, who couldn't keep still from all the anxiety. "Tyler," Sophia shouted when she saw her brother on the screen, "you've gotten so big, but I recognize your eyes." Tyler touched the screen as if he could touch his sister's face through it. "Sophia, you're so beautiful and so grown up." "I'm 8 years old now, and I'm learning French at school. Do you want to learn too so we can talk in French?" The natural way the girl handled the situation moved everyone. For her, finding her brother was a dream come true, without any complications. Christopher looked directly at Dr. Richard Miller through the screen. "Doctor, you deceived us. We wanted to give a family to children in need, and you made us part of separating siblings. I know, and I apologize. There are no excuses for what I did." Patricia, who had remained silent until then, spoke with a firm but emotional voice. "Tyler, we want you to know that if we had known about your existence, you would have come with us too. Sophia always talked about you, and we always wanted to find you. I know, Aunt Patricia. I don't hold any grudges against you." "Now," said Christopher, "we need to find a solution. Sophia is legally our daughter, but Tyler is her biological brother. How can we make it so they can be together?" Judge Helen considered the possibilities. "There are a few options. You could start an adoption process for Tyler as well, which would allow him to move to England. Or you could consider moving back to the United States. There's also the possibility of an international shared custody arrangement, where Tyler would spend time with you." "I want my brother to come live with us," Sophia said immediately. "We have a room that could be his." Tyler looked around the courtroom, then at Mrs. Ruth, who had become a bridge between him and his sister. "I don't know if I can move to another country like that so far away, but I really want to be close to Sophia." Mrs. Ruth approached the screen. "Christopher, how about you come spend some time in the United States? I have a big house here in Boston. You could stay with me while we decide what's best for the children." "Grandma Ruth," said Sophia, "that's a great idea. We can come for a big visit." Christopher and Patricia looked at each other. The suggestion seemed to make sense. "Patricia, could you take time off from work?" asked Christopher. "For our daughter and her brother, I'll take as much time off as needed." Judge Helen smiled for the first time since the situation had begun. "Then let's arrange this. I can issue documents to facilitate the family's trip to the United States for family reunion purposes. In the meantime, could Tyler stay under the temporary guardianship of Mrs. Ruth?" Mrs. Ruth nodded immediately. It would be an honor to care for this boy. Tyler looked at the woman he barely knew, but who was willing to help him. "You would really do that?" "Son, you're Sophia's brother. To me, you're already family." Dr. Richard Miller, who had remained silent during the conversation about family arrangements, stood up. "Your Honor, I would like to offer to cover all the expenses for the family's trip from England to the United States. It's the least I can do to try to make up for the harm I've caused." "We don't want your money," said Christopher firmly. "Please," insisted the lawyer, "let me at least try to fix a small part of the damage I've done." Sophia on the screen clapped her hands. "Does that mean we'll see each other soon?" "Very soon, Princess," said Tyler, using the affectionate nickname he had given her when they were little. "You remember you used to call me Princess." "I remember everything, Sophia. everything. The emotion once again took over the courtroom. Melissa, the social worker, approached the judge. "Judge Helen, may I suggest we arrange psychological follow-up for everyone involved? This reunion, although wonderful, might bring some emotional difficulties." "Excellent suggestion, Dr. Richard. This will also be your responsibility." The lawyer nodded quickly. "Of course, whatever is necessary." 2 weeks later, Logan International Airport was as busy as ever, but to Tyler, it felt as if the whole world had stopped. He stood beside Mrs. Ruth, wearing new clothes she had bought for him, holding a sign with the name Smith O'Connor family. "Nervous?" asked Mrs. Ruth. "Very. What if she doesn't recognize me in person? What if we're not the same as we used to be?" "Son, a brother's love doesn't get lost. You'll recognize each other." The flight arrived on time. Tyler saw dozens of people coming out, but he couldn't spot Sophia among them, until he heard a scream. "Tyler!" A girl with curly hair ran toward him, followed by a couple. When Sophia jumped into his arms, Tyler felt that a part of his soul that had been missing had finally come home. "You're even taller than I imagined," said Sophia, laughing and crying at the same time. "And you're even prettier than in the photos." Christopher and Patricia approached, also emotional. Patricia hugged Tyler as if he were her own son. "Sorry it took us so long to really get to know you," she said. "What matters is that we're together now," replied Tyler. Mrs. Ruth introduced herself to the couple and invited them to her home. During the ride, Sophia wouldn't stop talking, telling them about school in England, about her friends, about how she had learned better Portuguese so she could talk to her brother. "And you, Tyler, what have you been doing all these years?" asked Christopher. "I studied hard. I always thought that if I ever found Sophia, I wanted her to be proud of me." "I've always been proud of you," said Sophia, holding her brother's hand, "even without really knowing you." Mrs. Ruth's house was indeed large, and she had prepared a special room for Tyler, decorated with drawings that Sophia had emailed during the 2 weeks of waiting. "Sophia insisted on decorating your room," explained Patricia. "She said she wanted you to feel at home." That night, after dinner, Sophia insisted on sleeping in Tyler's room, on the inflatable mattress that Mrs. Ruth had prepared. "I'm afraid that when I wake up you'll have disappeared again," she said. "I'll never disappear again, Sophia, I promise. Do you remember the stories you used to tell me?" "I remember. Do you want to hear one?" And for the first time in 8 years, Tyler told stories to his sister until she fell asleep. The days that followed were filled with lots of talking, many outings, and much effort to make up for lost time. Christopher and Patricia were impressed with Tyler's maturity and with the affection Sophia showed for her brother. "They have a very special connection," Patricia commented to Mrs. Ruth one afternoon as they watched the siblings playing in the backyard. "It's true love," replied the lady. "There's nothing stronger than that." During the second week of the visit, Christopher sought out Tyler for a serious talk. "Son, Patricia and I have talked a lot. We want you to know that you have a family with us, if you want. We can take care of the paperwork for you to come with us to England." Tyler was silent for a few moments. "Uncle Christopher, I'm very grateful to you for taking such good care of Sophia, and I know you would do the same for me. But I'm 16, almost 17. My life is here in the United States. I have friends, I have plans for college, and we completely respect that. But I want to continue being part of Sophia's life. I want to see her grow up, be there for the important moments. Of course, you'll always be welcome in our home, and Sophia can always come visit you here." Sophia, who had been listening to the conversation in hiding, came out from behind the door. "So you're not going to be separated again, right?" Tyler picked her up. "Never again, Princess. Now we have phones, computers, airplanes. We'll talk every day and see each other whenever possible. Promise?" "I promise." On the day the family returned to England, there were many tears but also much joy. Unlike the first separation, now they knew it was temporary and that there would be reunions. Sophia gave Tyler an album she had made during the vacation, with photos of the two together and drawings of how she imagined their future would be. "So you won't forget me," she said. "It's impossible for me to forget you, Sophia." 3 months later, Tyler was in court again, but now for a very different hearing. Dr. Richard Miller had requested a meeting to present a project. "Your Honor," said the lawyer, "I would like to propose the creation of a foundation specifically focused on reuniting siblings who were separated in adoption processes. I want to dedicate the rest of my career to correcting mistakes like the one I made." Judge Helen Robinson examined him carefully. "Dr. Miller, your license to practice law is under review by the appropriate authorities. Are you aware of this?" "I am, Your Honor, and I accept the consequences of my actions. But while I can still work, I would like to use my experience to help other families." Tyler, who was present at the hearing, stood up. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "Of course, Tyler." "I've forgiven Dr. Miller. Not because what he did was right, but because holding on to resentment won't bring my sister back, and if he can really help other children, I think he should have that chance." Dr. Miller looked at the boy with gratitude. "Tyler, I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe you don't. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for myself and for other children who might be going through what I went through." Judge Helen Robinson smiled. "Dr. Miller, your foundation proposal will be reviewed, but I want you to know that it will be under constant supervision by the court. Any irregularities will result in the immediate cancellation of the project." "I understand and completely accept." 6 months later, the Reunited Foundation had already reunited its first family, twin sisters who had been separated at age 3 and reunited at 12. Tyler, now living permanently with Mrs. Ruth Miller, who had become his legal guardian, closely followed the foundation's work. He had become a kind of ambassador, sharing his story with other children and families. Sophia called every day via video chat, and every 3 months she came to spend vacations in the United States, or Tyler went to visit her in England. "Brother," she said during one of the calls, "did you see the news story about our story on television?" "I did, Princess." "What did you think?" "I thought it was cool that other children will know they shouldn't give up looking for their families. 1 year after the first meeting in court, everyone gathered again for a case review hearing. Mrs. Miller had finalized Tyler's adoption. Sophia had come from England with her parents, and even Dr. Miller was present to present the foundation's results. "In 12 months, he reported to the judge, we have managed to reunite 17 families that had been improperly separated. We discovered that the practice of separating siblings for financial reasons was more common than we had imagined." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. This really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Judge Helen announced that the case of Tyler and Sophia had inspired changes in local legislation, creating stricter protocols for adoptions involving siblings. "You've turned a personal tragedy into hope for many other families," she said. Sophia, now 9 years old, asked to speak. "Doctor, I wanted to thank you for helping us find each other, and I wanted to say that my brother is the bravest person I know." "Why do you say that, Sophia?" "Because he never gave up looking for me, even when everyone said it was impossible, and now he helps other children not to give up too." Tyler hugged his sister. "And you're the strongest person I know, because even though you were so little when we were separated, you never forgot me." "I could never forget you, Tyler. You're my brother." 2 years after their first reunion, Tyler had become the symbol of the Reunited Foundation. Now 18, he balanced studying for college entrance exams with volunteer work at the foundation. Sophia, at 10 years old, had become a little ambassador for the cause, making drawings and videos for other children who were searching for their siblings. Dr. Richard, who had lost his license to practice law, dedicated himself fully to the foundation's social work. He had found a way to redemption by helping to correct mistakes similar to those he had made. Mrs. Ruth, now officially the grandmother of Tyler and Sophia, divided her time between caring for her grandchildren and supporting other families who came through the foundation. "You know what amazes me the most?" commented Judge Helen during a visit to the foundation. "It's how a situation that started with so much suffering turned into so much hope." "It's because love always wins," replied Sophia, with the wisdom of someone who had experienced it firsthand. On the 3rd anniversary of their reunion, The whole family gathered again at the courthouse, but this time for a celebration. The Reunited Foundation had reunited over 100 separated families. Christopher and Patricia, who now spent 3 months of the year in the United States, had become major supporters of the foundation. "When we adopted Sophia, we thought we were saving one child," said Patricia. "In truth, she brought an entire family into our lives." Tyler, who had passed his college entrance exams for law, announced his future plans. "I want to specialize in family law and continue the work we started here. I don't want any child to go through what I went through, feeling abandoned when there was actually a family who wanted them." Sophia jumped into his arms. "You're going to be the best lawyer in the world. And you're going to be the best sister in the world." "I already am," she said, laughing. Judge Helen, who had followed the family's entire journey, was moved to see how that story, which had begun so dramatically, had turned into a source of hope for so many people. "Tyler," she said, "when you walked into this courthouse 3 years ago, pointing at Dr. Richard, I thought it would just be another complicated case to solve. I never imagined it would be the start of a revolution in how we handle sibling adoptions. Doctor, I just wanted my sister back. I never imagined our story would help other people. That's exactly why you managed to touch so many hearts. Sincerity and true love always find a way to show themselves." Dr. Richard approached Tyler. "Son, I want you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did, but also not a day goes by that I'm not grateful for the opportunity to try and fix my mistakes. Dr. Richard, you taught me a very important lesson." "What lesson?" "That people can truly change when they recognize their mistakes and work to fix them." That night, with the whole family gathered at Mrs. Ruth's house, they watched a documentary that had been made about the Reunited Foundation. Seeing other families being reunited moved everyone. "Do you know what the best part of all this is?" asked Sophia during dinner. "What?" everyone asked at the same time. "It's that now I'm sure I'll never lose you again, and other children won't lose their families either." Tyler looked around the table. Mrs. Ruth, who had become his grandmother in spirit, Christopher and Patricia, who had welcomed him as their son, and Sophia, his princess, who had never given up on finding him. "Sophia is right," he said. "The best part is knowing we're a real family now, and that we're helping other families reunite too." 5 years after that first day in court, Tyler was graduating from law school. Sophia, now 13, had become a smart and determined teenager who divided her time between studying in England and doing volunteer work at the foundation during vacations in the United States. The Reunited Foundation had expanded to other states and had already reunited more than 500 families. Dr. Richard, completely transformed by the experience, had become one of the country's leading experts in family reunification. Mrs. Ruth, at 70 years old, remained the heart of the family, welcoming all the children who came to the foundation as if they were her own grandchildren. "You know what I learned from you," she said to Tyler and Sophia during a Sunday lunch. "I learned that family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay together." "And we chose to stay together forever," said Sophia, hugging her grandmother. During Tyler's graduation, the whole family was present. Christopher and Patricia had come especially for the event, and even some of the foundation's earliest cases were there to honor him. "Tyler Smith," announced the keynote speaker, graduating from law school with academic honors and special recognition for extraordinary social work. When Tyler went on stage to receive his diploma, Sophia was the first to stand up and applaud, followed by the entire family and all the people whose lives had been touched by the siblings' story. In his speech as class speaker, Tyler talked about how true justice wasn't just in codes and laws, but in the ability to turn pain into hope. 5 years ago, he said, "I was just an orphan boy who wanted to find his sister. Today I'm a lawyer who wants to make sure no child goes through what I went through. And that was only possible because I found people who believed that every family deserves a second chance." After the ceremony, Judge Helen, who had become a great friend of the family, approached Tyler. "And now, Mr. Tyler Smith, what are your plans?" "I'm going to work exclusively with the foundation, Judge Helen. I want to expand our work across the whole country. And I want to help," said Sophia. "When I finish high school, I'm going to study psychology to work with the children who come to the foundation. You two together are going to revolutionize the adoption system in the United States, said the judge, smiling. 1 month after graduation, Tyler opened his own law practice, specializing in family law. His first client was a mother who had lost contact with her children due to a bureaucratic error. "Mrs. Smith," said the woman, crying, "I've looked for help in many places, but everyone says it's impossible to find my children." Tyler looked at her kindly. "Ma'am, I've learned that impossible doesn't exist when it comes to a family's love. We will find your children." And so the story that had begun with an orphan boy pointing to a lawyer in a courtroom transformed into a lifelong mission dedicated to reuniting families and healing broken hearts. Sophia, whenever she came to the United States, made sure to visit the courtroom where it had all begun. On her last visit, she left a drawing on Judge Helen's desk. It showed her and Tyler holding hands with a phrase underneath, "Thank you for helping us find our family." The judge framed the drawing and hung it on her office wall, where it would remain as a reminder that sometimes the most important justice isn't in the law books, but in the hearts of those who believe in the transformative power of love. Dr. Richard Miller, who had become a completely different person, often said in his lectures, "The biggest mistake of my life taught me the greatest lesson, that it's never too late to change, and that a repentant heart can become an instrument of healing for other wounded hearts." And Tyler, now a respected lawyer and a fulfilled man, always ended his lectures on family reunification with the same words. If you have a brother, a sister, a lost family member, don't give up. If you've made mistakes that hurt families, it's not too late to make things right. And if you work with families, always remember, we're not just dealing with cases and paperwork. We're dealing with hearts, dreams, and love stories that deserve a happy ending. Tyler and Sophia's story had become much bigger than themselves. It had become proof that determination, forgiveness, and true love can transform any situation, no matter how impossible it may seem at first. And in every family reunited by the Reunited Foundation, in every child who never gave up searching for their siblings, in every lawyer who chose to do the right thing instead of the most profitable one, the story of the Smith siblings continued repeating itself, creating waves of hope that spread far beyond the walls of that courtroom in Boston where it had all begun. End of story. Now tell me, what did you think of this touching story of reunion and forgiveness? Do you believe Tyler made the right decision by forgiving the lawyer who separated him from his sister? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and don't forget to like. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.